Now I want to mention a few details concerning Matthew 24 and 25, picturing the second coming of Jesus Christ, and use these scriptures along with Revelation 19, which picture the visible, literal coming of Christ to the earth. We've seen the rapture is the time when Christ comes for the saints. That's before the tribulation and before Daniel's 70th week and before all these events of Revelation 6 to 19. The second coming of Christ is the visible return of Christ to this earth to be seen by men. Christ will actually land on this planet earth. That's at least 7 years after the rapture of the church. It's after the tribulation and after Daniel's 70th week. Christ will come with the armies of heaven to set up a kingdom in the world, and that's what Matthew 24 and 25 describes. We won't take time to mention all the signs of the coming of Christ in that chapter, but in verse 15 of Matthew 24 he said, "When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of to Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let them which are on the housetop not come down to take anything out of the house. Woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. Pray that your flight be not in winter, the flight of the Jews from the Antichrist, from Judea into the mountains, be not in winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as never was since there was a nation, to this same time none or ever shall be. And except those days shall be shortened, there shall no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened." After giving other signs of the coming of Christ, such as false Christ, false prophets, wars, rumors of wars, famines, pestilences, and great signs and wonders among the people to deceive, if it were possible, the very elect and other signs, he tells us that then Christ will appear. For in verse 29 we read, "Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall not give a light, the stars shall fall from heaven, the powers of the heavens shall be shaken." Then, after the tribulation, then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, for they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet to gather together his elect from the four winds of heaven, from one end of heaven to the other. So Matthew 24 deals with signs of the second coming of Christ, and it pictures the second coming of Christ immediately after the tribulation of those days. Then we have in the latter part of Matthew 24 certain parables illustrating watchfulness and readiness and faithfulness and so on in view of the second coming of Christ. Going into chapter 25 of Matthew, he says, then, that is, immediately after the tribulation, when Christ comes to the earth, then the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins. He gives us another illustration, illustrating watchfulness in this parable, for in verse 13 of this 25th chapter, he said, "Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh." He illustrates watchfulness, the people in the kingdom of heaven, the people living on earth in the realm of profession, the day that Christ will come to this earth. Christ warns them to be ready and to be watchful and to take a lesson from these 10 virgins, and do not be slumbering and sleeping like all 10 of these virgins were doing at the time that particular bridegroom in that story came to get his bride. I know we could spend several hours on this discussion about the 10 virgins and all that, but there isn't any need of that. If we'd be just as simple about this as we are with the rest of these things we've been talking about, it's a simple illustration illustrating watchfulness in view of his return. Doesn't refer to Christians of any kind. Doesn't refer to the Holy Spirit inexperience along any line. 10 young ladies simply had 10 lamps. They were to light the way of the wedding procession of a certain young man who was to come and get a certain young lady in the days of Jesus Christ. Who those 10 young ladies were, we don't know. 10 young ladies that lived and died many, many centuries ago and do not refer to any class of Christians of today at all. He uses that illustration back there just like he used all the other illustrations in his day to illustrate certain facts.